Hey everybody. Welcome to SaaS Group Live AMAs. Today, we're talking about this state of retention. Retention is the word of the year, according to SaaS founders, along with AI, sustainable growth, profitability, what have you. And here with me are Scott, founder and CPO at Churnkey, a platform supercharging all aspects of customer retention and optimizing your company's growth, and Klaus, Chief Revenue Officer at Usersnap, one of the beloved brands of SaaS Group, a user feedback platform for companies to collect product insights and scale outstanding customer experiences. Super excited to have you here, guys. We're live. Let's talk retention. And first, let's do a bit of a proper introductions for you. So, Scott, would you tell us who you are, what you do?
Right on. Co-founded Churnkey. I handle product and marketing, and we look at retention from all sides, from cancellations to failed payments, reactivations, customer health, and we really just want to be this all-encompassing platform for handling your retention. So excited about that. I came from mobile apps. I helped build Tinder Super Like, and I never thought I'd be in B2B SaaS, but here I am.
Thank you for that. We all enjoyed it. And Klaus, now off to you.
Yeah, hello, and I'm Klaus. I'm, as you said, the Chief Revenue Officer. Previously, I was Head of Growth. So churn and retention was a topic for me. I actually started like way long ago in the enterprise, almost service product companies, where kind of churn was not the main topic because customers are still there in my old company, so almost for 20 years. So churn is not the main problem, but as soon as I switched to a SaaS company, retention and churn is key. Actually, everyone talks about growth, but I still believe churn is the main problem that keeps you from growing, and this is why you should spend a lot of time on better understanding why customers are leaving. That will help you. So it's great, to talk about that topic.
Yeah, absolutely. I think understanding why it happens is super crucial, and that's why we're really thankful for Churnkey, Scott, all the entire team for coming up with this incredible report that I'm going to post a link to again now in a moment in the comments. So grab your link. We it was a joke that it expires. I mean, grab it anytime. It's great. Read it, learn about retention. Let's go in, right? The first question is kind of the obvious one. What is the overall state of retention? Like, what's happening, Scott?
Right on. Well, it's mixed, and we start from the end and look backwards, and we look at cancellations, and it was surprisingly flat, slightly down, with a less than a percentage overall over the year. And I'll caveat this by saying our data set's predominantly European and US based. So the vast majority of our data comes from there. We have representation throughout the world, but I just want to caveat that. So when it comes to B2C, it was a difficult year, primarily with B2C on the voluntary churn side. B2B remained a bright spot. These customers were more open to kind of revisiting their relationship with the products they were purchasing, and in our data, the reasons for them leaving were more easier to address head on. So I think overall, if you step back, customers across the board are becoming more savvy. They're more willing to experiment with different solutions to their needs, and they're more willing to advocate for what they need. So, this in some cases, let's say you have a prosumer product that's very seasonal. Well, we saw that become more pronounced. So it was spikier and more trophy, right? Among B2C. But that, there is a silver lining here where the feedback you receive on the tail end of this becomes more pronounced too. And so it's, sometimes, it's the internet. You have to have a thick skin. You have to not take things personally. Who knows what you're going to find in that feedback form. But when you when you have this feedback, it's easier to work with. And Klaus, I'm sure we can talk about that. But when you have happy customers whose needs change, they are more open to resetting the equilibrium of their relationship. And if you have, we've seen a lot of customers who make it a point to engage with new customers from activation all the way forward. So you have that open channel of feedback. And when you have a history of that with a customer, they're more receptive to re-engaging their relationship with you. They're going to say, "Hey, I'll be back. I promise. I love you. I don't need you right now." Things like that. So it's, when there's a mixed bag, there's uncertainty, but there's also a reason to study up, take advantage of the situation for your business, make it a win. Just don't coast into it.
Nice one. Klaus, what do you have to add here?
So yeah, we are, like, our main focus might not of our company of Usersnap is rather user feedback and not so much churn per se, but what we see, and it's more like from a practical standpoint, is that, and we are a B2B company, so we see that budgets are tight, so the retention is always endangered. Customers are revisiting if they can combine tools and just use one and just accept that maybe one is not so great. But that's currently really a struggle for many SaaS companies, many companies that I think in general market conditions are let customers revisit if they really need you. So you have to have a good foundation, a good bringing them value. So I think currently it's really filtering out the companies that haven't worked on a good relationship, as you said, Scott, that they are also standing with you if things are getting harder. And yeah, so I think tough times, and this is also why the topic is so important.
Absolutely. I remember
Yeah,
we had a podcast with
I think
recently,
it's.
and he said, "Well, we do
Oh, sorry.
nothing." Sorry, Scott. I think we have a connection
All
overlap.
good.
But yeah, sorry. I'll just finish the story right quick. And he was like, "Yeah, at Basecamp we don't do any cancellation flows, and like if people go, we go. We never try to stop anybody." And that's that's very good if you can afford that, right? But not every company can afford that, right? So I think what you were saying about just building the foundation for people to come back to you, but also learning on the spot why they want to leave, and
Yeah.
preferably before they hit that unsubscribe or cancel my subscription button. That would be great. Scott, what were you planning to add?
Yeah. I think the theme of this is that in any relationship, there's a chance for a reset. When there's a chance for a reset, it's a dialogue, right? It's a dialogue of what's working for you, what's not, and the best relationships are those that have constant engagement back and forth with everyone has different needs, right? So that's in the context of a business and products and customers. There are more choices than there ever have been before. For accounting software and like all these things, and it's exhausting to go out and find another product to use, to do the research, to make the change, get set up and all that. So if you have that small window of opportunity to reset a relationship with a customer, I mean, why wouldn't you take it, right? It's better for everyone.
That's true. Take it from a Tinder guy.
Yes,
Sorry, Scott.
man,
I'm going to make a lot of jokes about that today.
Nicely done. That was so smooth. I'm okay. I'm taking notes now.
All right. So let's go to our next question. And yeah, what can we learn from cancellation patterns over the past year? So, like when it happens, I think ChartMogul just released their new benchmarks, and you actually can see that it's a little bit of a spike around Christmas and Thanksgiving time. So yeah, what is it like this every year? Because like I tried to go back a little bit in their data, and it sounds like it looks like it's like this almost every year. But for example, 2021 wasn't affected much. So yeah, Scott, what do you think?
Yeah. Generally, we're seeing. So what we saw was obviously a lot of spikiness, but it looked like people were kind of planning ahead. So they before a major holiday, a lot of activity. During it, not so much. But then afterward, it was kind of everyone coming up for air and saying, "Oh, I ate too much. I spent too much. I had such a good time. Let's tune down that Netflix subscription," or whatever. So that was interesting to me because it just seemed like deliberate planning on behalf of, and this is mostly B2C customers, major cultural events, want their tuning to be in line with that. So I thought that was pretty illuminating, not surprising, but the minutia there I thought was cool.
Yeah, that's interesting. Klaus, do you notice any spikes for you guys, like when the budgets are being uh, looked at again, when anything like this happens in B2B?
Yes, yes. So there are two, let's say, pattern or things that are specifically stuck out of the statistics from last year, and this is on the one hand, it seems that in September and October, often budgets are done, new budgets are planned, and then there you see if you have less budget for the next year, and if you have to cut costs on some tools and revisit all your SaaS infrastructure and tech stack. And then that's where it kind of started a little bit, and seeing that in our statistics. And I guess that many of the SaaS companies out there had the same problem. And the second is that the reason for the churn, kind of pricing, and that the prices are seen as too high, kept up and kind of increased in the overall statistics of what are the reason for churn. Yeah, that's actually the pattern that we saw.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, but all right. I mean, everyone's probably listening here to know how we can reduce churn, right? So, is it possible to reduce it by having a customer health score system? Like, how sustainable is that? Scott, what do you think? What's your experience there?
Yeah, what we've seen with customer health scores is that it can help you focus your time. And this is really important if you have customer success teams, if you have, depending on who owns that motion, we're seeing a lot of team reconfigurations in the past year where is it CS who owns it? Is it support? Is it product? Is it a blend of all these? So, that's another topic on operational stuff. But, these can be early warning systems. These can be customer health can be an early warning system. And it can just become part of one's routine, right? So you're saying, okay, how do I spend my time of these accounts? Accounts A through Z have not have engaged a little less. So having a system that takes into account your specific value metrics, your specific markers of success can be pretty essential. And obviously, and Klaus, I'm sure you see this too, where you get a string of bad feedback while using a new feature or going through a certain flow. You definitely want to reach out and be proactive and address that. So it's basically like Minority Report, the precognitions. You want to get in there and intercept the crime before it happens.
Yeah,
Always a
absolutely.
sci-fi reference.
Yeah. Klaus, yeah. What's your point on this?
Yeah. So what I see and why this question is super interesting is we actually implemented that several times. I have to confess, because I believe that's churn. When it actually happens, but I think we'll coming also to that point is when it happens, it's often too late. So you can rarely kind of rescue a customer when they already took the decision. So it's relatively important to understand where your customer stands and how healthy they are. And I think that such a customer retention, like even strategy, is super important, and the customer health score system can be part of that, or can be one measurement. Actually, it's it's what is interesting there is, and why we said we several times we implemented something like that, is because you have to understand where the value and where the usage, like how can you find out that your customers are healthy or not? It seems very easy because it's usage or something, but you easily figure out that usage alone, you have to be very specific. What is the value that your product drives to the customers? And that is where you can point in. And the first times we didn't understand that we have two different segments of customers. So some of them looked very red and were endangered to churn, but actually they weren't, because they had more like a project-oriented approach of using feedback. And the second one is a regular usage. There, it's definitely like having a lower usage in feedback makes your customers either healthier or not. So I think that's super important. For me, it's also a customer support topic. They should own that. But of course, there are many possibilities how to use that. I think it's essential. I think to round it up is to, as early as possible, to figure out how healthy your customers are is very important to fight churn.
Klaus, I want to ask you kind of a highly specific question. I've heard a lot of debate lately that NPS is inferior to CSAT, but then supporters of CSAT have jumped on that and just piled on the NPS. What's your take on this? Because this isn't my area of expertise. I'm super curious.
Yeah. No, it's a very good question. So actually, I think I lost a lot of friends by saying that NPS is actually not so relevant as everyone said it was. I think it was a few years ago because it was kind of this hyped metric for, this is how we solve the churn problem, or figuring out if our customers are happy or not. But I believe that it's not so easy to where do you ask NPS? It's the number is super highly depending on where. You could ask it in a transaction, you could ask it on a regular basis, and so I believe that it's also why I'm often using it in one sentence, saying NPS or CSAT. I actually prefer CSAT to NPS because it's more rather giving an emotional kind of state of your customer. How do they are they happy or not? And then you ask them the qualitative question. I think often the qualitative question is even more important than the pure trend line. But for managers, they want to have a number. They can communicate a number and they say everything is fine. We have an NPS score of X. But I believe they are off. That's not enough, and you have to dive deeper, and you have to better understand your where your customers stand. So I think that CSAT and all these metrics are giving you one number, but then diving into that and let's say gathering qualitative feedback is essential to kind of have a holistic picture of where your customers are standing and if you have satisfied customers. Yeah, I think that could be a longer discussion about that.
Yeah, super cool. We should chat more about that.
Well, yeah, let's do another episode of this. I'm always happy to chat. But yeah, I mean, we can talk all we want about preventing churn and, introducing all kinds of cancellation flows, but it happens, right? And I think it's a good opportunity to learn a bit more about why it happens and when it happens and what we can do to prevent it or work with it in the future. So what are kind of the biggest things that you can learn from churn when it happens? Scott, want to go first?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, churn is like kind of stress testing your assumptions. And, obviously, if it's debilitating for your business, it's easy to feel the pressure, right? And I would argue that pressure is a good thing. It could be a reflection of the market you're in. It could be also a reflection that you have a complete mismatch between your customer and your audience. So, I mean, those are the basics, right? But we've seen even with simple exit surveys, price tests, we've seen intel about competitors pop up. The introduction of a new design or new technical aspect to your product. Is this the right direction we're going in? And so it's pure, for the most part, pure unfiltered feedback on what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. And I hear people say, well, if you're doing something right, why would they cancel? And as I mentioned earlier, seasonality is a major factor that, and as are economic circumstances of your customers, that you can't really control. So you should lean into it and learn from it, take advantage of it for the benefit of both you and your future customers, or maybe returning customers. So yeah, I would say the best way to learn from churn is exit surveys, and be completely willing to face into what you see there. But there's also the involuntary side too. So we've seen a huge spike in the use of prepaid debit cards, or prepaid cards and debit cards, and then on the B2B side, virtual cards. So these are failed payments from people that want to pay you, and it's maddening that this happens. But face into that reality too, where maybe you don't accept a certain type of card, or maybe you charge around payroll dates, or right after the first of the month when maybe budgets are refreshed, or whatever. So it's just, all this is to say, you got to get closer to your customer, and this is a chance to do it.
Perfect. All right, Klaus, anything to add to this?
Yeah, I like when you mentioned you're getting unfiltered feedback, and I interpret it at least the important thing about churn is that you get honest feedback. So don't want to say that customers are not giving you honest feedback during your relationship, but you know how it is in a relationship. You always kind of want to keep a good relationship, so you might not be brutally honest, yeah. But when you are asking for feedback in the right moment, yeah, you get the brutally honest feedback, and then they might, tell you that this feature was not enough, although they said before, yeah, it's great. But so that's why I would do that. I also believe that you have, like we said, what can you learn from churn? I also think that it's very important how you learn that, or how you get the feedback from churn, because asking from time to time, when you have time as a founder or in your CS team, and then you ask that, then you might get some points. But I think you have to kind of build a process and a habit, so that it gets asked like from your CS team if they hear that you're churning, or if people are churning, then you should definitely have a churn survey that kind of asks you why and what is the reason, and that you can maybe try to have counter measurement. So that's not only the learning, but also kind of already a counter measurement. You know, if someone tells you the pricing is the problem, otherwise we love you guys, you might give them a voucher. But I have to say, and I reflect what I said before, is I believe when they churn, they already kind of close this relationship in their head. So it's very, very hard. It's rather use the opportunity to learn. And yeah, I think that's the more important part from the churn feedback. Yeah.
Right. If you guys could maybe share anything, like any finding that was interesting or, absolutely amazing for both companies that you got from somebody who churned. So basically, I don't know, somebody told you, like Klaus, you just mentioned, like this feature wasn't enough, and if it did that, or if you could build something else on top of it, we would come back, and you did, and they also came to you. So was there anything like any revelations from customers that you used for your retention? Scott?
Yeah, the first example that comes to mind is a very, very fast-growing AI product for writing, and instead of, there was a lot of, in the early days, benefited from the rise of ChatGPT, rode that wave. And as you can imagine, as all these AI products pop up, churn is becoming a major problem because there's just so many places to go. And what they found was they weren't leaving because of price, really. So they kind of dropped, the company dropped offers that were, percentage based or whatever. And instead they realized they had, let's do an experiment. Let's see if it's an activation problem. So instead of offering discounts, they pointed them canceling customers towards quick tutorials based on the selections they made in the exit survey. They even tried to get them on calls, 15 minute calls to try and alleviate this disconnect of, well, I don't really understand how to do X, I don't want to be subscribed anymore. And so they identified and fixed an activation problem because the product was just so sprawling. You could do anything with it, really, and that was really the problem. So it helped them really tamp down their use cases and realize who their ideal customer was. And that obviously has a huge backflow effect towards the business, and it's way healthier today as a result. So that's one of my favorite ones.
That's really cool. Okay, so they
Yeah.
definitely learned from their customers. Klaus, was there anything for you guys?
Yeah, actually, I mean it's way back, but when I joined the company, was 5 years ago. Then we kind of rewrote the churn process, and we asked for the topics. As I said, what is the reason why you're leaving, and so on. And out of that came that we also heard a lot of times that, hey, we love you guys, we love Usersnap. But actually, we're leaving, and with the second question, like why and so on, we figured out that a lot of our customers are project based, which was a interesting revelation. So that the churn was actually, I don't know even how you would call that churn. Probably a temporary usage churn purpose. And they often even come back. So we tried to adapt some of the product to facilitate or to better work with temporary usage. That was the one thing. And we also decided over a longer strategy to reposition the product, because we also saw that we don't want to have project-based one-time usage for a few months and then they're leaving, although they love us. But we wanted to have a long-term use, and that is when we even started our repositioning project, over the next couple of years. And I think that was a very, very important revelation and for us, for Usersnap.
And if you had stuck with project-based use cases, that's when we're finding pauses are becoming way more popular, right? So it's, the automated delay of a payment, and then, you can limit feature usage or whatever if you want, but you just automate that seasonality, which is at scale, you can imagine, really, really powerful.
Yeah, the hibernation plan, we called it.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to use that from now on.
Nice. All right, and yeah, one more question that I wanted to throw to you guys, because, well, you're talking about, exit surveys and getting feedback from customers who churned, and I try to remember when was the last time when I actually went through this survey, because I also sometimes give up using some tools, and they try to, not all of them, like, surprisingly, I don't know, I would say maybe like 10% ask later, like, why you canceled with us, which is also kind of surprising. But when they do, I'm like, no, I like, our relationship is over, right? It
Yep.
has been over in my head for a long time. Why would I talk to you? So how to make sure that customers actually give you that information, you have something to learn from. Scott, how to make people talk?
Yeah. You make me sound like a Bond villain here. No, the thing I always say is, this experience needs to be user friendly and customer centric, and that I feel really, really strongly about that, and have really strong opinions around it, because the origins of this this particular experience are not great. So, for example, I don't know if you have all had to deal with call centers for canceling subscriptions, or I literally had a gym membership that required me to send a fax between certain hours of the day. And it was 2 to 4 p.m. on a weekday. I had to send a fax. This was, 2010. Give me a break, and it was just maddening and frustrating. And so, with my mobile consumer background, everything in mobile consumer is one tap. You want to reduce the amount of steps, right? And you want to be as straightforward as possible. So, I look at a lot of these cancel flows out there, and literally the buttons moving around and changing color, and we built a funny prototype where the button would just run after your cursor around the screen. That's what it feels like in a lot of these cases. So, if you're doing that, you got a lot of work to do. And so, yeah, all that. Yeah, obviously I could go on about this, but and I hope my connection's okay too.
Fax is good though. Fax is such a throwback. But I mean, in 2010, you could still find a fax. But yeah,
It's true.
I think in the US, people love call centers. I mean, like, I don't think in Europe it's that common anymore. Klaus, you know better. Yeah. I've lived in Europe too long ago.
Yeah. Nah, it's less common, but it's still here, and yeah, they make you wait, and yeah, you might give up. But I have to actually say, I think that the main, like, for us, and the, to a certain extent, the relationship is already over, as you said so clearly, and I think you cannot make it really worse by kind of a little bit forcing the feedback. So, for example, you cannot churn, or you cannot cancel your subscription in our case if you're not at least clicking on the topic and giving us a second comment. And if you put a dot there, it's also fine. Yeah. So we are not like really nagging you, but you have to give us feedback why you're leaving. If you don't do that, you cannot cancel. That's super easy. The 2 clicks or the 5 sentences or even words are fine. But that's at least what I can ask for. And it's most of the time it brings good value for us, and the customer already kind of, they're happy that it works in a digital process, so they don't have to send fax in our case, and that's enough. But you should definitely ask, as you said. It's even sometimes confusing if they just say cancel and say okay. You're like, okay, this is what my worth for you was. Okay, the value is 0. Thank you. I'm gone.
No, I mean it's also like on one hand it is nice because they just let you go, and like you say, they're not nagging you like why you did it, and give us some feedback and blah blah blah. And maybe in that case, maybe coming back for feedback after like a month would even make a bit more sense, because you cool down a little bit. You may start missing them and you want to talk again, so that's your time to swoop in. But yeah, okay, let's move on to the next question. And yeah, I think that's kind of one of the most important ones. What are the best strategies for a SaaS business to reduce churn? Scott, what has been working for you guys, or what do you see working for others?
Yeah, and I could go on a long time on this, so I'll keep it tight. And if my connection drops again, just let me know so I can pick back up. So I would say start out by giving one person or team the ability to own retention. Retention is cross-functional, which is a strength, right? There's a lot of diversity of opinion here, but because of that, it tends to get ignored. There's no owner, and when there's no owner, a project kind of withers on the vine. Second, I would say don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Just get some basic retention measures in place. Recover your failed payments, get at least an exit survey, retain who you can right away. So move quickly. Third, I'd say you need to get that repeatable feedback loop set up. So it's one thing to capture the knowledge. It's another thing to address the problem. So, if no one is using, if everyone's mad about a certain, I don't know, call it closed captioning feature or something, well, let's fix it. That's the whole point of doing this. The key is to involve everyone here who needs to be involved. Don't take it personally. Approach it like a beginner. Did I drop again? Cool.
Yeah, for a moment.
I'll keep going.
Go on.
Okay. All right. And
Don't
then I'd
churn,
say,
don't churn
from
Scott.
there, once you get that data, optimize, start tracking how these things trend over time. And based on that feedback at the end, do some reactivation, post-cancellation operations. Did I make it through any of that?
You did.
Yes.
You did. We were
Okay.
there for you.
All right. I'm still hanging on.
Hang on. All right. Well, that's a good rundown. Klaus, yeah, what are the strategies that you guys are adopting at Usersnap?
So be careful, self-promotion now. But on the one hand, I believe that and this is also the reason why we founded Usersnap and why we moved into the direction of feedback, because we believe that that you can only build great products if you're listening to your customers, if you're listening to what their needs are, what their pains are, and then I often believe that for example, high churn, that people are talking about high churn, or that it is the typical high churn in SaaS products. But I believe that in most cases, it's not high churn. The problem is a non-existing product market fit. And this is because the founders are not listening to their customers enough. They're not understanding the value that their product derives for the customers. And I think if you have high churn, you should definitely rather start with a product market fit survey than with a churn survey. Yeah, so you cannot fix a leaky bucket if it has so many leaks that you don't have enough hands and fingers to kind of close that. So that's one thing. So, and I think that constantly collecting feedback during the whole journey is equally important, and especially in your product, listening to your customers, what are their issues, what are their pains, what are their needs, and kind of building up on that. It doesn't mean that you should build definitely what your customers are saying, because often they're talking in solutions, and you should rather understand what is the actual problem. And if you do that, your product gets better and your churn gets less. That's I think one of the main strategies that I would actually use that are way earlier, and that's even not, if you already are sure that you achieved product market fit, then as I said before, I think that a very good customer retention strategy, like making it a habit, having a process for your customer support team to regularly reaching out to kind of reacting on feedback. And one last thing that we recently found, to a certain extent found out, there now when I say that how old I am, but when I was younger, then there was something that was called banner blindness. Today, like, banners are not so usual anymore, but I think today there is an email blindness, and customers often learn and educate themselves in the first month about your product while they're onboarding, and then they're not spending a lot of time getting educated. And that's also, I think, part of a problem why customers churn. We sometimes have customers, when we talk to them in a churn interview, we hear, oh, your product can do this or that. We say, yes, we can do that. And they said, that's sad, because we already subscribed somewhere else. And okay, and this is an educational problem that you can also use in the first 1 to 3 months. I think there is the most important part to educate your customers what your product can do. And so there's, I think, or in finding also ways of course how to later educate them. But this is also why I mentioned the email. It's actually a very hard problem, because sending email marketing automations, customer retention automations, they do not work anymore, because people are ignoring all these emails and they don't have time for that. So you have to find new ways of how you can educate your customers, and in that case extend the retention. I hope that was not too long. Sorry. That's a topic that's in my heart, like giving feedback and learning from feedback and building better products.
I love it. Is there a follow-up here? Do you think that your product is becoming your best communication channel?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just because everything else is so
nowadays,
saturated.
Yeah. Should we try sending TikTok sequences of onboarding?
Let's do a dance.
Well, that's where you could, right? Yeah. Well, you could get some engagement there. Who knows?
Keeps us young,
Reach out to us if you tried. We want to learn from you. But yeah, I think also another thing that we discussed extensively on a podcast with quite a few founders out there is that 2023, yes, it was a year of retention because no one really was eager to spend money. There were no budgets, there were cuts and everything. So people were kind of stuck with retention, but hey, you still need to acquire new customers. So how important is fighting churn versus acquiring new customers? Scott, what do you think is the main focus for SaaS founders?
Clearly I have a bias here, but I think that not resolving churn is allowing your business to die, not to be dramatic. It's like watching money burn or your house get washed away by a storm. I mean, doing nothing is not an option. but that being said, your inflows and your outflows need to be healthy. So I hear this all the time where founders or founding teams are saying, well, we're just focusing on growth right now. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. But it doesn't make any sense. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. So, this we're focusing on growth right now means, you don't need to learn anything new from the customers you've earned, right? You don't need to work to keep them happy, or address any mistakes you've made. So, looking at churn is evolving over time.
Okay. All right. Klaus?
So I'm also now a bit torn, but because on the one hand, new customers, take take 5 to 10 times more effort to kind of get new customers instead of keeping your existing ones, and that's and I also said that I believe that the growth that is often promoted, like you have to grow, and growth is the main metric for a SaaS company, which it is, but the natural enemy of the growth is churn. And as I said, if the churn is, for me, often the better place to figure out if you achieved product market fit. And this is why I would even say that in the churn reasons and in the churn area, you can learn often more than in the onboarding of new customers. So I think that, but actually I want to ask a question to Scott, because you have a lot of data around churn, and I'm a little bit competitive. So I would really love to understand, like, what are like good churn rates for a B2B SaaS company? Are there any kind of ranges that you would see where am I healthy when I take my own churn rates of Usersnap? Do you have any data about that?
Yeah, B2B, we're seeing you want to be 5 and under. Anything above 5 starts to get a little dicey for B2B. The healthiest ones we're seeing are like 1 and 2. So I'd say overall, I mean, look, we've seen, I feel like a doctor, right? We've seen cases up to 40%, which is bonkers. That's barely even a business at that point. But, typical range 3 to 5 for B2C, up to 8 is tolerable. But for B2B, 5 and under is definitely where you want to be.
Annual. Is it annual or?
Okay. So,
Yeah.
ooh. Okay. So, Klaus, are we winning that competition?
I think we have to dive into that in the
Asking
other
for a
podcast,
friend.
and I have to prepare better numbers before that.
I know. Let's
So
get our numbers exported and gear up, right?
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, since we are coming to the end of the hour, I have just one more question. To kind of just wrap it all up. So could you guys share, kind of your best hack, or, we call them hacks, but usually they're just very steady, long-term, efficient strategies to fight churn, or to to increase your retention. So what would be your, I don't know, 1, 2 best things you would recommend to founders, especially in B2B?
Especially B2B. I would say have someone, I'll go back to what I touched on earlier, have someone own retention from day one and elevate that on the same level as pursuing growth, and make that like a cultural milestone, or not a milestone, but a cultural stepstone, where we respect retention as much as we do sales or growth or whatever. Because that's what you need to depend on. It will keep your lights on. And yeah, it's I remember in the mid 2010s where designers were fighting for a seat at the table, in the boardroom or whatever. Well, I think we need that for retention owners now. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, super like to that. Klaus?
Yeah, so Scott already took the I think most important one, but yeah, I think that you can make that even stronger by implementing churn and retention, especially because I think that retention is the more positive way to state that you want to keep your customers longer and you don't want them to break up in the relationship. So if you put that into your business goals, I think that's also an essential part, because then it always gets the awareness in the company that it needs, and it should not be just, as I said, the growth level and how are we growing, and then no one looks actually at the extensions or at the churn rates, but only at the how many new customers did we get, and maybe they look at LTV, but no one kind of really dives into that and kind of segments and learns from how could we actually prevent, or in this case not prevent churn, but increase retention. And so I think if you give it the right stage and kind of awareness, then you already are winning, because everyone will have the attention for that problem or for that topic.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thanks for sharing
Love
that.
it.
I mean, like I said, thanks so much, everyone. Scott, the team at Churnkey, they prepared an incredible report on the state of retention 2024. So the link is in the comments or in the description if you're listening to this as a podcast. Thanks so much for sharing all this information. I think we should do this again and maybe tie it down to what Klaus was saying about product market fit and how that could actually help your retention a little bit. But yeah, thanks so much for sharing your wisdom and your learnings, and happy to do it again sometime.
Ditto.
Thanks, Anna.
Great to
It's
be here.
great.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, and take care.